3 weeks of mind and muscle pushed to the limit. If you don't think you can make it, don't even try. What's up, team? I'm former United States Army Ranger Joshua Thompson. In this video, I'll be going over my airborne experience to give you guys an idea of what it's like, as well as give you guys a recent RASP graduate perspective. Now, I'm going to do my best to remember the exact details because this was back in 2020 where COVID was afoot. I began my journey into the military's toughest course, Airborne School, a couple weeks after I was in post-RASP, because I wasn't initially able to go into the first class because there wasn't enough excessive slots. And keep in mind, guys, I had a relatively large RASP class when I graduated. I think it was around 126 individuals. If you guys want to look up the exact specifics for that, I was in class 0820. But before our class was shipped over to Airborne School, the RASP Cadre would warn us that we would be targeted by insecure peer NCOs, black cadres who considered us disrespectful. They just said, if you wear your scroll, you're gonna have a target on your back when you go over to that school. And this was their words, not mine. And so the solution they came up with is that they wanted us to take our scrolls off so that we wouldn't get targeted. We would just pretend to be normal AIT students. And the reason for this is because apparently in previous cycles of RASP graduates attending Airborne School, a lot of RASP graduates would later go on to get into trouble in Airborne School. And as it was only a suggestion, I didn't take off my scroll. I earned that shit, so I was gonna wear it all the way through. So that's just to give you a little bit of atmosphere as a post-RASP Ranger about to attend Airborne School. They warn you not to wear it so that you don't bring unnecessary attention to yourself and potentially put yourself at risk. But finally, myself and the leftover Rangers who didn't make it within the first Airborne class were finally slotted into an Airborne class. We were first dropped off into the in-processing area where we did in-processing, and then we were assigned to Alpha Company. I still remember the first formation of lining up in Alpha Company like it was yesterday. My particular class had a couple of MARSOC dudes going through their pipeline where they do static, and then after they do static from Airborne, they go to free fall school. But there was a couple of MARSOC dudes in our course at the time. I specifically remember all of them wearing these distinct shades, and obviously if you're in any TRADOC school, you can't have any tinted eyewear unless you are allowed to do so. And so the black cats would go over and they would remind, hey, you're not supposed to wear those eyewear. This MARSOC dude, he's like, oh yeah, of course, we're tracking. And they would just continue to wear the shades the entire time. Yeah, MARSOC dudes made the experience like 20 times better. Airborne School is comprised of 3 weeks: ground week, tower week, and then jump week. The majority of the time, we marched over to this bay-looking area where there was a bunch of gravel rocks. And this is where we would conduct our parachute landing fall training, or otherwise known as the PLF. Additionally, we would familiarize ourselves with the T-11 parachute, as well as aircraft procedure when you're just starting off in the aircraft. Specifically for us was the C-130, since we were only jumping out of the C-130 for our cycle. Later in the week, we would go back to that overhang area with the rocks, where we'd conduct PLFs off of this platform, and then utilizing this zip line, conducting your PLFs in every direction. Just familiarizing ourselves with, the 5 points of performance when it comes to jumping out of the aircraft and landing. Aircraft procedure, obviously, you're going through your equipment check, you're checking your buddy, you're checking yourself, going through the catchy phrase, helmet, chin strap, chest strap, left and right leg strap, hook, pile, tape, lowering line, left side. You get the picture. You'll hobble your way over to the door. You'll look the jump master in the eye while you hand up your static line to him. Hey, here's my static line. You hand it off. Turn, take one giant step, exit the aircraft, count to 6,000. Check canopy, gain canopy control, look at your peers, make sure you're not bumping into or heading towards anyone. The weekends were particularly boring because I went through a cycle which was during COVID. We couldn't even go to the gas station. If you guys are familiar with the area, there's like an Arby's gas station, a subway area. Yeah, we couldn't go to any of that stuff and do any of that. So all there really was to do was just hang out with your peers, work out, or just watch stuff on your phone, talk to your loved ones. That's all there was really to do. Since I went through COVID as well, there wasn't PT conducted in the morning, which is surprising because RASP is like the exact opposite. So for the first couple of days, me and my Ranger buddies, we conduct these prison workouts. There was some cinder blocks just laying around that we'd use as weights. There was a pull-up bar we'd utilize and a dip bar. And so we do that. And I think it was like a couple days in, this van just showed up out of nowhere. And all the MARSOC dudes just piled up on this van and they started unloading all these barbells and weights. And so me and my ranger buddies, we asked those MARSOC dudes, hey, can we utilize those weights? Or can we work in whatever? And so our prison workouts upgraded for pretty much the entire rest of the duration of Airborne School. And also we'd work out towards the end of the day as well, because obviously we weren't doing any PT. And the reason why we were able to get off so soon was because our airborne class was half the size of a normal airborne class. So we would get done super early in the day, probably around 1500 every single day, with the exception of the last day on week 2. This would also help on jump week and get done with our jumps super early on jump week as well, so that was a bonus. Well, the point is, all we did was work out, run, couldn't do anything fun, couldn't walk around base, couldn't go to the gyms. And so this brings me to the second week of hell, Tower Week, where you don't actually jump off the towers that you see in the middle of the airborne field. Actually, a lot of people injured themselves while utilizing them, whether getting blown into the towers themselves and getting injured or worse. And so for those reasons, they actually discontinued those. The second week mainly focuses on exit training, falling training, and landing training. Basically, all your 5 points of precision. You'll exit this tower that's like 40 feet in the air and you'll jump out. You're connected to a zip line and you'll count to 6,000. Make sure your points of precision are on par. You'll get graded on that. You'll do this Hollywood style as well as full combat. Hollywood meaning you don't have a combat load on. Full combat load obviously means you have extra weight on. Towards the middle of the week, you'll go to the shack where there's a bunch of harnesses that are hanging, and this is where you'll practice your slips. If you can't do a pull-up, this is the reason why they expect you to do at least hold a pull-up for, I think it's 10 seconds, so you can hold a slip. And finally, towards the end of the week, you'll practice your PLF off of this swinging harness. You don't know when you're going to land or when the black cat is going to make you fall on the ground. They're just going to say prepare to land. All you need to know is feet and knees together when it comes to this. And this is the part of the training that actually takes quite a bit of time, because a lot of people generally have to redo this part over and over again until they get it correct. And finally, the last week, jump week, the week that everyone's been anticipating, where you get to sit in the shed for hours on end waiting for your turn to jump. This is the week where you'll be conducting your 5 required jumps in order to graduate. Now this week is very dependent on the weather. Luckily for my class, the weather was very nice all the way until Wednesday, so we got done very early in the week. But I've heard longer durations for the last 5 jumps because the weather quite literally makes it so that people can't jump. Now the day starts off super early in the morning where you'll jog over to the airfield. I was actually given the privilege of being the guide on, so I would set the pace as a ranger. Apparently I was setting the pace a little too fast and some people were falling out, but that's what you get for putting a young motivated ranger in charge of the movement. Once you get to the airfield, you'll do more PLFs in each direction. They'll make sure you're doing it properly, as well as, aircraft procedure and exits. You get your reps in before you actually go do it. Now listen up. This is important because when this is complete, it is very important that you utilize the latrine before you get into your harness and enter the harness shed. The reason for this is because you're not going to be able to get out of your harness and utilize the restroom until after you've jumped, which could be, depending on your class size, it could be all day. But don't worry, while you're waiting there sitting to jump, you'll get the opportunity to not talk to your neighbor and get the opportunity to watch the Band of Brothers on the big screen, as well as their very old airborne promotional video on repeat. Because they had that promotional video on repeat, that is the reason why I can pretty much recite that video word for word. I still don't know the airborne creed though. So when my chalk was being grouped up together, I ended up being the first jumper, and obviously they're not going to change the chalks for each jump. They're going to keep it the same. So I was the first jumper every single time. Each jump, I was able to look at the horizon at 1,250 feet up in the air or so, waiting for my jump master to, green light go me so I can jump. To say I was nervous was, an understatement, especially after my second jump didn't really go so well. I definitely felt it after my second jump. But as soon as they say green light go, you jump, you're gonna feel, at least for me, you're going to feel weightless while you're doing your 6,000 count. You're going to feel weightless. Before you reach 6,000, majority of the time, hopefully always, your canopy is going to deploy. You're going to look up. If you didn't have a proper exit, I think 2 of my exits weren't that great, you're going to twist up. And so when your risers twist, You grab at the back of your neck, you start pulling it apart, and you're just kicking around like this until you're untwisted. And then by then, if you're not, floating towards anyone or you're above anyone, because you actually had good spacing, that's the reason why you'd be fairly close to someone, then you're just gonna have a peaceful float to the bottom. And then when you're around 100 meters or so from the ground, you're going to prepare to land. You'll do your opposite slip, prepare to land. Do not look at the ground. They say keep your eyes on the horizon. I always kept my eyes above the horizon because I think on my second jump, my peripheral vision kind of reacted. And I think that's why I landed a little bit more poorly on my second jump. And I would say the most important thing that you need to implement when you're PLFing is feet and knees together. They say it for a reason. If you don't have your feet and knees together that are slightly bent, you're putting your legs at risk for being snapped like twigs when you land. I've heard stories where people look at the ground, they anticipate it, and they think they can land, and then their legs just snap like twigs. If you've already attended airborne school, you know that they don't like it if you pull your reserve if you do not have to pull your reserve. The reason for this is because a rigger spends a lot of time and effort packing these reserves so that they're properly packed away. Because if they are not properly packed away and they accidentally go loose, especially when you're in an aircraft, your reserve can start snaking its way over to the exit door, and if you're still inside the aircraft, when your reserve deploys outside of the aircraft, you are going to be viciously ripped from the airplane from the inside. So overall, they are packed very meticulously and have to go through a lot of inspections before they're handed out, but that's the reason why they don't like you to pull it. That being said, there was this one MARSOC dude in my airborne class who I would say his first 3 or 4 jumps, every single time you would see his canopy fully deployed and you would just see this flimsy reserve on the side. You can tell when you don't need the reserve. And so I think the last time or two, he was warned if he did it again, he would get dropped for the course. But that being said, it was pretty funny to witness. Once that is all completed, you attend graduation, where we are awarded wings for our dress uniforms. They don't actually provide the ones that you need for your OCPs, so you're actually gonna have to extract more money to go get that shit. Obviously, we had a private graduation, and because due to COVID, we didn't have any family members. Our graduation was fairly quick, easy, and I believe it was literally within the hour that the RASP fans were there just to pick us up. Because they're literally like right down the road. Super easy, and we're back in post RASP just like that. As for whether I was being targeted because I was a ranger, I wouldn't say that was true in my personal experience. Now, I definitely felt there was a lot more eyeballs on me and more attention drawn to us young rangers, lower enlisted rangers who attended airborne school compared to the other peers, but that's obvious. That's going to come with the territory. I think as long as you aren't a cocky asshole, I think you'll be alright. Just don't enable people and they won't be able to bug you. So that's my airborne experience, guys. If you're heading to airborne, first of all, good luck. Stay healthy. I hope my weekly breakdown of airborne school was at least informative to all of you, maybe insightful when it comes to being a ranger. If you want a better breakdown of the actual school, I suggest the Business Insider video. It's a pretty good breakdown as it's basically a direct source of airborne schools. If you guys thought I missed anything or would like to add your thoughts, comment down in the comment section. Hit the like button to show the algorithm your support for the channel. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.